Welcome to this Sunday's Plan B conference workshop. Today it is my pleasure to introduce Tom Everitt as our presenter. Tom is a past District International Speech Contest winner and an award-winning speaker. He's a longtime speaker and MC for the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, where he has sat on the board of directors and held the West Side director's position. He and his wife received the British Columbia 2017 Realtors Care Award for their 80 Anthems fundraising and awareness efforts. In 2017, Tom and his family visited 80 countries in one calendar year to raise money and awareness for SOS Children's Villages International, the largest group of orphanages in the world. His daughter received an official Guinness Book of World Records for the most national anthems sung in their home country in 1 year. This is his story. Please welcome Tom Everitt, Around the World in 80 Anthems, a story of inspiration.
I wanted to first of all say namaste and thank you for having me. I hope everyone is healthy. This COVID thing has caused, we are in uncharted territory, uncharted waters. And so I just wanted to say I hope everyone is doing well. I was going to originally start my presentation by asking the questions, how many people appreciate what they had before COVID? I know a lot of us are looking back and going, wow, life was different. How many people have had a life-changing epiphany maybe now because of COVID? I've always thought that traveling is a privilege. It is not a right. It is a privilege to get on an airplane. It is not a right. And I think a lot of us are looking back and going, things are going to be different if we can start again. And how many people are going to do things differently? Madam Conference Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests, my family and I decided to sell everything. My wife and I were stressed to the max in our business. Our kids were 9 and 11, and we thought, what can we do? What can we do what could be the greatest possible thing or the most insane thing that we can think of that we could do to maybe change our lives? I want to talk to everyone today about how we created our story and how we lived it. There are 5 things here that we're going to learn today, and I'm going to be showing more photos than I normally would. Had I been a keynote speaker, I would not show as many photos, but I think because of Zoom, I think it's a lot more fun to show some of these photos. I hope that everyone can create the greatest story for yourself that you possibly can using every skill that you possess. It is not, Toastmasters has been, we in Toastmasters, we have been so far ahead of the game about stories. Anybody notice that Facebook now has a story? You guys notice this? Well, welcome to the Toastmasters bandwagon, because we've known this a long time ago, that being able to tell a story is one of the greatest skills that you can have, and creating your own story for your own life and your own family. It's one of the greatest things that you can do. For us, when we were creating the story, we didn't want to just make it about us. Around the World in 80 Anthems is not necessarily about my family or my daughter. It is about children singing with children around the world. One of the reasons we love this is because if it comes from the heart, you can do no wrong. We're going to make all kinds of mistakes. If you're singing 80 national anthems in 80 countries, you are going to make mistakes, but none of them were ever malicious. It always came from the heart. One of the skills I want to teach everyone today is finding your leverage in your life and in your business and in your own personal story, finding your leverage, because leverage can be used to create more things, to get more things, to obtain more things. Leverage is important. We are in sales. Well, somebody's looking at it, somebody's looking at a home. Well, those people might grab it. So maybe you're constantly leveraging, right? And be irresistibly persistent. We're Canadian. We're polite. We're happy people. We're good folk. We need to be irresistibly persistent. And I've always loved the expression, kill them with kindness. Absolutely one of my favorite expressions. So my daughter's 11 years old. She loves to sing. We are listening to some of the music that we're hearing on Spotify and some of the music that we're hearing online. And we're going, how do we support my daughter and the arts through listening to some of this stuff? What about national anthems? Any of you remember Whitney Houston's The Super Bowl? I will never forget where I was when I heard her sing the national anthem, the US national anthem in 1991. I thought my daughter could sing the American national anthem. I'd pay her $5. She could learn the American national anthem, and she could sing it at a hockey game. Well, then she learned the Spanish national anthem. And because 90% of the kids at her piano school were Chinese, she learned the Chinese national anthem. So we were on this anthem roll supporting her vocals. And we thought, what can we do? How can we create some good with this? Right? We don't want to just be on TMZ or American Idol or something. What good can we do? What story can we create? What are our skills and what are we willing to do? We were willing to sell everything. We were willing to put everything, other things in storage, rent out our house, because I went on to Facebook and I thought that maybe my daughter could go to the United Nations. Maybe she could sing at the United Nations, raise some money. So I ask, and I love asking for help. I don't ask for favors, I ask for help. This is the best part about social media. So I go on to social media and I said, being proudly Canadian, I said, who can help us with this idea of our child singing national anthem somewhere? And a friend of mine in Burundi, Africa, 1 hour later said, have you ever heard of SOS Children's Villages, the largest group of orphanages in the world? They would love this idea. What if you went to the different SOS villages and sang with the children singing with children around the world? This is where the leverage comes in. Because we created around the world in 80 anthems, we created a logo. Anybody can come up with these ideas in your own lives, in your own businesses. Anybody can come up with it. But you have to have a story. You have to have something so believable that you can get sponsors. Even if we're doing something small, we were talking about doing something small on Main Street. We have a mortgage broker who throws in some money, and we have a home inspector who throws in some money, and all of a sudden we have a conference. Voila, you can do it in your lives too. The game changed when Flight Center agreed to sponsor us for a third of our flights. That was a game changer, because all of a sudden we said, well, Flight Center's in. What about Facebook? Facebook said, Flight Center's in. Facebook donated $5,000 worth of advertising. All of a sudden we had Facebook. Eurail said, well, we'll donate 3 months first class train for your whole family to visit 30 countries. So all of a sudden we were using this leverage to come up with this thing. Not a single dime of anything that was contributed to us, not a single penny was spent by us personally. We paid for all of the stuff that we used, and all funds that we got were used for SOS Children's Villages International. So to start off, we started off in International Children's Day in Parliament in Ottawa. So we got to Ottawa. My daughter managed to sing the Canadian national anthem in both English and the French version. And by the way, if there's one anthem around the world that people absolutely love, it's funny to believe, it's the Canadian national anthem. Everybody wanted my daughter to sing the Canadian national anthem after their anthem, every single time. It was amazing. And for those of us who are obviously all of us who are in quarantine affected by COVID, people think that Canada is Disney World. They think that Canada is the most incredible, it's like a fantasy land. It's amazing. For your patriots out there, I can tell you that the world absolutely loves Canadians. We used a Padcaster. So this turns your iPad into a camera. And it was very easy to carry around. And this is primarily what we used, as well as our iPhones. Technology is a little better than it was 3 years ago, but this was how we filmed most of 80 anthems. Jody Wilson-Raybould, I'm sure all of you might know her. She was in our riding in Vancouver. And when she found out that we were in Ottawa to start off International Children's Day, she surprised us by showing up there. So I don't know what your political convictions might be, but I'll tell you, Jody Wilson-Raybould is a class act, and she even showed up to wish us well as we went around the world. CTV News in Ottawa was the first TV station outside of BC, outside of Vancouver, to cover the story. And it was amazing for them to be able to cover it for us. We certainly got an incredible amount of interest. And what it did was, again, it was like it all of a sudden started building right from the get-go. What this little small idea of maybe having my daughter sing at a hockey game all of a sudden started growing. And it's all, again, about the leverage. This was a miracle for us. After Ottawa, we flew to Miami because we were going to do the Caribbean countries first. We figured we could do quite a few in a row and start off that way. And my wife, being an amazing organizer, wanted us to follow the sun around the world. So we didn't get too cold in certain places. It didn't quite work, but we were trying to follow the sun because we were going for a full year. So anyways, we landed in Miami, and this is Telemundo. Telemundo is the largest Spanish-speaking TV station in the world. We had no idea that they were going to do this interview, but they thought our daughter, they thought Capri spoke Spanish. Well, we didn't. And these guys that you see here did not speak English. So we had to do this crazy interview. But what it meant was we could take that interview, put it on our iPhones, and use it. 16 of the 80 countries were Spanish-speaking countries. So if somebody didn't understand what we were doing, we would show them the iPhone, press play, and they could see this interview with Telemundo. This saved us in Colombia and Peru and Mexico and so many places that speak Spanish, and very few speak English. So it was a wonderful thing to have. I might want to add right now, am I coming in clear? Is everybody good? Yeah, see some heads nodding. Okay, wonderful. I'm sure somebody will tell me if it's not going. These are the kinds of things that we saw right away when we were traveling. This is the kind of thing that you would see. This is behind a school, ladies and gentlemen. So the thing about SOS Children's Villages is that they are all very similar. They take a piece of land, they build 8 houses. There is a mother. This is a woman these are the saints of modern times. SOS mothers have a family of 6 to 10 kids. She lives with them, she cooks for them, she cleans for them. She's an employee, but she's their mother. They are the most incredible women in the world. They're so fantastic. So everywhere you might see something like this, and this is a public school in Thailand. So this is a public school, and if you look closely in some areas, you can see rats. So a lot of, it's definitely a bit of a different scenario from schools that we have here in British Columbia. But for SOS Children's Villages, those kids are guaranteed a clean village. There's no political affiliation. There's no religious affiliation. We were in Muslim SOS Children's Villages and Buddhist SOS Children's Villages, Catholic SOS Children's Villages, Christian. So there's no political or religious side to it. Each one, but it was fascinating. In some countries, some of the kids wanted to leave the village. And in other countries like India, they wanted to get in because the kids that didn't make it in were the kids that suffered the most. So we went to Mexico. This is the mayor of Cozumel, Mexico. And he met us while my daughter managed to sing the Mexican National Anthem. He was a lovely guy. And this was one of our first countries, so we were just thrilled. That flag behind there is absolutely massive, and he was a wonderful guy, and they all treated us so well. Eugene Melnyk is the owner of the Ottawa Senators, and he's a billionaire, and he didn't like the school in Barbados. So he decided to build his own school in Barbados. Now, in 40 of the countries, we stayed in the SOS village with the children. My son was 9 years old. He blogged the entire thing. So he had Bowen's name is Bowen. He had Bowen's blog. But Eugene Melnyk created this entire school. So in 40 of the countries, we had an SOS village. In 40 of the countries, we didn't have anybody to sing with. We had to try and find people. We would land in a country, try and find a school. We would, because we're in real estate, we'd Google some realtors and see if they could help us out. Anyways, this is Eugene Melnyk's school in Barbados, and our daughter managed to sing the national anthem with them. This is, again, an example of my wife being interviewed afterwards. And we found, again, this little snowball starts to roll. The more people would hear about it and talk about it, and it would get shared. And of course, we were sharing. Each clip would usually have a website clip, a web link, and we would add that, and it would grow and grow. We went to Trinidad and Tobago. My son takes Purple Dragon Martial Arts, and this is where the founder, right behind my daughter, is the professor. And the professor is the owner of 60 Purple Dragon Martial Arts schools. My daughter had the opportunity to sing the Trinidad and Tobago National Anthem with 300 black belts standing behind her. Now we've done two, I'll get to this later, but we've done 2 films on 80 anthems. When she's singing, these guys start doing their katas. And if you've ever seen 300 black belts do a kata, it is one of the most powerful things that you can see. It really is one of my favorite scenes in the film is when they do this. And Trinidad and Tobago is a rough town. We took a taxi about an hour around to the other side of the island. And there was a reason why a lot of people take martial arts there. So a fascinating experience. Nicaragua, again, I like to stress, it's not about our family and it's not about my daughter. It's about children singing with children around the world. In this photo, virtually none of these kids speak English. So imagine you have this little Canadian girl come in and she can't speak your language, but she can sing your national anthem. Not only would my daughter learn it phonetically, but she would learn it, what it meant in English. She would learn what the anthem means, why the anthem is what it is. Because of course, what's the first thing that any press, with anybody interviewing afterwards, do you know what the anthem means? And so she had to know what it meant. She actually got credits at her school. We homeschooled them for a year, but she actually got credits for it because she had to learn exactly what that anthem meant. There is nothing more offensive than going into another country and singing their anthem and not knowing exactly what you're singing about. So it was a learning experience for all of us. I can hum the Indian national anthem, the Chinese national anthem. I can't sing them, but I can hum them because we all had to learn it. For 1 year, my daughter was driven around by my wife in Vancouver and they practiced anthems in the car all the time. So Aldeas Infantiles SOS in Nicaragua was an amazing experience for us, and the kids were fantastic. And it's funny, you know, children are children around the world. I'll tell you, they all go into the playgrounds, and you might not be able to communicate, but kids are kids around the world. Costa Rica, we were always so amazed at the colors of the customs of each country that we went to. So in Costa Rica, they had these beautiful red, white, and blue dresses. And a lot of times they would give my daughter a dress. Now you can't exactly carry around 80 countries worth of custom outfits. So we shipped some back, but they treated us so well. And in Costa Rica, as you can see, I don't know if any of you have been there, just an amazing country and an amazing national anthem. But there is an underlying scenario to so many of these places and so many of these countries, and that is war. And as an example, when we were in Poland, the people of Poland are done with war. The descriptions of tanks rolling into their cities time and time again and killing, it is just incredible. And one of the most important lessons I learned around the world is that the world is not filled with hate. It is not filled with anger. It is not filled with fighting and violence. The world is filled with amazing, incredible people who love the children. So very difficult for that. So this is the SOS Children's Village in Peru. This is a very special photo for 2 reasons. One, this particular SOS house was built by Canadians. So this is the House of Canada in the SOS Village in Peru. We're talking 3.5 hours outside of Lima in an area of Peru. I don't even know, I couldn't even probably point it out on a map. It was so far into the mountains, but look at what these kids got to live with. I mean, I don't know about you, but these are wood frame windows in Vancouver. These cost an awful lot of money. Now behind this photo, this boy was wearing metal shackles for the lower parts of his legs. His legs were blown off by a bomb. And, but look at him, he's amazing. Super happy, just a phenomenal place. And Peru is a very, very, very tough place if you are poor. This particular photo is very challenging for me. I wonder where these boys are. I wonder how they are. I wonder what happened to them since we left. I called them my 3 amigos. My 3 amigos would wake me up at 6 o'clock in the morning by sticking their heads in my window, just like this. And they were amazing guys. They were extremely physically abused as they were growing up. The boy on the left had severe damage done to him because his father would keep him quiet with a wrench. And as soon as we would get up in the morning and go outside, that boy in the blue on the left side there, all he wanted to do was hold my hand all the time. Amazing, amazing experience. tragic. But the fact that SOS Children's Villages had, of course, helped these kids was always such a wonderful thing. And these boys were super happy, well fed, got to play a lot of games. And you know, as tragic as it is, my daughter's in the background, as tragic as it is, as you can see, it was just a lovely thing for these kids to have. Wanted to just give you an example of, again, City TV in Colombia managed to pick up the story. And when we were in Colombia, we definitely had a scenario where we had to show the news clip from the news in Spanish so that they could understand what exactly it is that we are doing. But of course, in Colombia, with the drugs and with a lot of the El Guapos, there was always a lot of orphans, a lot of children who maybe they have been removed from they're not always just orphans. They are sometimes removed from their families because of dangers, right? So we met a lot of children who were like that. City TV around the world was always amazing for doing these stories. They would link us up with the next group. El Tiempo is essentially the New York Times of Colombia. We were one of the only families to ever get a tour through El Tiempo to see, because of course, yes, they have the internet, yes, they have Facebook, but still people read the newspaper all the time, and El Tiempo is a massive, they still have the old printing presses and everything like that. But at this point, we started to really see the numbers coming in as far as donations go, and as far as the exposure that we were giving to SOS and to Around the World in 80 Anthems in general. We've been asked how much money we raised in total. It is extremely hard to figure out our total. We know it's over $1 million, but we can't. We did 3 events in Vietnam. It's very hard to call Vietnam and ask them how much money they raised. And the rules in different countries, it was amazing, because although SOS is in 135 countries, some laws are different in each country. Very, very hard to get final numbers from all of these different areas. This was our longest flight. Was over to Australia, New Zealand. This crew on our flight, as you can see, my daughter's holding this letter, and it says to Tom, Carrie, Capri, and Bowen. This is from the flight crew. This is from the pilot, and it was a 14-hour flight, and it was the one time of the entire trip that we got put in first class. They just decided to gift us first class. I cannot tell you how amazing it was to have this given to us. They were the kindest, most amazing group of people. And now, because of COVID, when I think about people who are working on airplanes, when I think about airport workers, when I think about essential workers, I just realize how much these people sacrifice for their jobs. When we got to Australia, we managed to get onto the most popular morning show in Sydney, Australia. Capri, you might as well come in here now.
Yes.
I'm going to introduce you to my daughter, Capri. She's going to come in here. But say hi.
Hi.
I can't see exactly how many people are out there, dear, but they're there. Anyways, so we're going to talk about the Malala scenario. So, you're right. So if you're an interviewer on the largest breakfast show in Sydney, you might want to make sure that when you ask a child or young girl a question, young woman a question, you better be ready for their answer. So this group of people asked my daughter, Capri, said, well, you all know Malala. And they didn't know who Malala was. And of course, Nobel Prize winning Malala. And it became, they got torn to shreds on the internet afterwards. And it was kind of sad, because they were such lovely people. But at that time, they just didn't know who Malala was. And it was fascinating. So at this moment, I would like to have my daughter sit down for a second.
Yes.
Say hi.
Hi, everyone.
This is the Toastmasters District Conference. Okay, so we're going to do this thing where we shake up this bowl.
Wait, they can't see the bowl.
Oh, they can't see the bowl.
There's the bowl.
There's the bowl. Okay, so we put the ball. Okay, and you're going to reach in and pull out.
I promise.
Nothing up our sleeves.
All right, so I picked out South Africa. I don't know if it mirrors it. Probably does. Anyway. Così si geleli Africa, manopalaisu panolwayo.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Philippines. Bayong magiliw, pilastan silang ano na alam ng puso'y sa dibdib mo'y buhay. All right.
We have a lot of Filipino people in Vancouver who watched ABS-CBN with Capri and loved the Filipino national anthem.
True. Italy. Fratelli d'Italia, d'Italia, se desta nell'elmo di GPU se ginta la testa. All right. Sri Lanka. Apa Sri Lanka. Namo, 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 mata.
One more?
Sure.
One more.
Last one. New Zealand. Ito wa atua on ga iwi matora.
Yay!
Oh, thank you. Good luck with the rest of your speech.
Thank you. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Capri Everett. Excuse me. So again, she can sing the full anthems, but for our times here today, we won't have enough time. So we got to Sydney, Australia. We were given permission not to sing in the Sydney Opera House, but we were allowed to sing outside the Sydney Opera House. And believe me, it's a big deal. Nobody is allowed to busk within about a half a kilometer of the Sydney Opera House. And so we actually got a letter. We were allowed to go up onto the property and sing. One of the things that we did notice, some national anthems are controversial. And in Australia, they are. The Aboriginal people do not, my daughter's making my lighting better, but thank you. See, she's a pro. The Australian Aboriginals do not agree with the national anthem. We borrowed a sound system from a didgeridoo guy who was playing, and he had his tribal makeup on, but we borrowed his sound system, but he would sit down for the national anthem. He was a wonderful guy, but he would not stand for the Australian national anthem, but he lent us his sound system, which we would not have, we were so desperate for one, so it was lovely. But it did go to show you, as an example, Austria, they do not like their national anthem. Nobody cares about their national anthem. India, if you do not stand for the national anthem in India, you will be arrested. So if you're in a movie theater or a restaurant, and I believe they just passed it in China as well, if you don't stand for your national anthem, you can actually be arrested. So fascinating to see national anthems around the world. This is another great example. This is in New Zealand, and this is at a Maori festival. I'm 210 pounds, and I was the smallest human being at this Maori festival. These are Maori people in New Zealand. Our security guard was 7'2" and 400 pounds. The first thing that gentleman asked in the hat there, he said, "Do you sing the Maori part of the New Zealand national anthem?" And my daughter said yes. And so this was in front of about 600 to 800 people that she sang the national anthem of New Zealand, and people just loved it. I was literally smaller than many of the women. They were 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", absolutely the biggest human beings and the friendliest human beings I've ever met in my life. This is just a step back from that just to see how many people were at this festival. And at the Rugby Auckland Nines Fan Day, Capri got the chance to sing the New Zealand national anthem there as well. We went to Argentina, to Buenos Aires, where my daughter sang outside in a movie theater area where she got to sing the Argentinian national anthem. And this was one of my favorite photos of the entire journey. This is a small boy who was so shy to talk to us in Panama City, Panama, that he was hiding behind this pole and offering us a banana as a peace offering. You'll notice he had water wings. The Panama SOS village had a pool. It was not the nicest pool you've ever seen, but it was a pool nonetheless. But I've always found this photo to be just an amazing example of humanity, just amazing. We went to Seoul, Korea. What an experience that was 3 to 4 years ago. Before, of course, the South and North Korea interest. I mean, they've always had that, obviously, but in the underground stations in South Korea, they have gas masks, they have for any time the North Koreans might attack. But at that time, nobody even thought about it. It was never a thought in their minds that North and South Korea would ever go to war. So this is in City Hall in South Korea. This is a bunch of politicians in the background. And they always, again, gave my daughter some wonderful outfits to sing with. And it was also, oddly enough, the coldest place that we went to. We actually went into a mall and we went skating in South Korea. This is an example, this is in Jakarta, an example of every country that we went to, people wanted us to try their local foods. Now, rest assured, none of this food went to waste. But this was an example of how kind people are. And maybe we didn't get to stay very long in certain areas. Again, Australia, New Zealand, 10 days, Sweden, an hour and a half. So again, this was not a vacation. These are not vacation photos. This was the most stressful, insane thing you could possibly imagine. But look at how kind the people are. They wanted us to try their local dishes and they always went out. It's making me hungry. But some of the foods were interesting. So for you foodies out there, even you foodies out there might not have always loved what they would offer us. This is in Singapore. Oh, I'm sorry, this is Taiwan. In Taiwan, this is a frog on its back, and you would use chopsticks to eat the insides. It was not the most cooked frog I've ever seen in my life. I really couldn't do it. But what shocks me about the photo, of course, is the size of the garlic. So you're going to have this frog garlic breath. I don't think it would have gone over so well with my wife, but this is, again, an example of cultures and how fascinating it is to be able to experience these cultures. This is otak. I want everyone to take a close look at that dish. Take a really close look. Do you actually see what is there? Because that is cow brain. And in Jakarta, they smear it on toast. It's fairly common. The good news is they eat, well, not for vegans or vegetarians. The good news is, though, if you're a meat eater, they eat everything. They have the eyeballs, they have the brain, they have everything in that animal. So none of it goes to waste. But it takes a strong stomach. And of course, if my kids wouldn't eat it, they would kick me under the table and I would have to end up eating it. But in Indonesia, food is absolutely celebrated and they eat an incredible array of foods. In Montevideo, my daughter sang in front of about 1,000 people for this particular anthem. It's 5 minutes long. The amount of studying that she had to do in order to pronunciate all the words, in order to know what she's singing, was amazing. And this was one of the larger audiences that we had. Again, the ball kept rolling. So we kept getting more and more news, more and more interest, and it became this little idea that grew and grew. We're going to talk about leverage because this is one of the greatest examples of leverage that we had on our trip. We went to Marseille and we went to the Marseille Opera House. You can't just show up to the Marseille Opera House and ask them to sing. But we did. And the guy working the ticket booth said, well, I'll tell you what, if you get the mayor to agree, you can come sing in the Marseille Opera House. We were just like, okay, where's the mayor's office? And he pointed at this building. This is the mayor's office in Marseille, France. And rather intimidating. Good thing my kids speak French. My wife speaks French. I don't. But what did we do? Why not kill them with kindness? Ask for their help. Let's go visit the mayor's office. We walked in. There was security everywhere. We said, we're Canadian. We're doing Around the World in 80 Anthems. We'd love to be able to sing in the Marseille Opera House. The security guy's looking at us like, who the heck are you? Please leave. Unfortunately, the deputy mayor heard us. She happened to be walking down the stairs. That's her in the yellow. She came up to us. She said, what on earth are you guys talking about? We said, we were trying to be able to sing in the Marseille Opera House. The ticket guy said it was okay if the mayor said it was okay. So she turned around. She called the mayor. The mayor said, I don't know what you're talking about. They called the Marseille Opera House. The Marseille Opera House said, I can't believe they went over there and asked you, but okay, fine, go ahead. So 5 o'clock p.m., we came back and my daughter got to sing the French national anthem in the Marseille Opera House. Kill them with kindness, ask for help. It can open up so many doors. So how are we doing so far? We are creating our story and we're living it. We're coming up with the craziest thing that we can think of. It's coming from the heart. So no matter what we're doing, as long as it's not malicious, we're not getting into trouble. And we're finding our leverage. We'll visit this at the end. We get to the Philippines, to ABS-CBN, the largest Filipino TV station in the world. They picked us up in an event. And by the way, every Filipino, whether it's Vancouver or Bellingham or Miami, all Filipinos watch ABS-CBN, and there's a show called Showtime. And this is us at Showtime. When we got back to Vancouver, we had a situation where a guy pulled over on the street driving his car and said, "You are the Canadian family that I saw on ABS-CBN." And this particular clip has had over 7 million views on YouTube. And I think we're at 100 million views in total for all of our videos. While we were in Korea, we got a chance to go to the Canadian, this is the Canadian ambassador to Korea. We were invited to the South African embassy, the Singapore embassy, and when we finished in Washington, D.C., the Austrian embassy, the American embassy, and the Canadian embassy all came to the baseball game to watch my daughter sing the American national anthem in front of 50,000 people at the Washington Nationals baseball game. As you can see, this is Eric, forget his last name, but he was the Canadian ambassador in Korea. He has a giant moose in his stuffed moose there. A very proud Canadian. He has hockey pictures all over the place. And what an incredible experience to be able to see this. And he had gone online and seen my daughter sing Frozen. He loved Frozen. So he invited us to the embassy there. What an amazing opportunity. The kids in Korea, there is a tradition that you hand down your fortunes, your homes, to the boys in your family. So unfortunately in Korea, male babies who are not going to receive anything are abandoned and left in baby boxes. They are actual custom baby boxes that are left, they're alive, but they're dropped off at a church and they are abandoned. And a lot of the kids in the SOS Children's Villages in Korea were boys because boys were abandoned more than girls. There was no social pressure with girls. Interesting and very, very tragic, but what a lesson. This is an example of a boy who was dropped off in a baby box. Unbelievable, a story that I would never have heard of if it weren't for 80 Anthems. This is a gentleman by the name of Zach Shaw, and he is from Vancouver, but guess what? He is the piano player who goes around, and he has this beautiful piano on a bicycle, and he goes around at Tokyo Disneyland. And he invited us. If anyone knows Linda Gilmaster, who's a realtor over on the North Shore, she knew Zach Shaw. She introduced us to Zach Shaw. He invited us to Tokyo Disneyland, and my daughter got to sing the Japanese national anthem in Tokyo Disneyland. Absolutely fascinating experience for us. And another example, I'm glad I'm wearing my Canadian hat there because it's another example of a Canadian helping a Canadian. I wanted to show a quick sign of the SOS Children's Villages in the Philippines. This would be a very common sign, except it would just be a different country. Sarashia is the Oprah of Jakarta, of Indonesia. So this was essentially Oprah that we got a chance to meet and be on the television show. It was absolutely fascinating. And of course, enormous Muslim population in Indonesia. About 80% of people in Jakarta and 90% of people are Muslim. In Vietnam, we did 3 massive events. We were in Da Nang, absolutely incredible experience for us. And my daughter was interviewed by a TV station in Vietnam, in Da Nang, and it grew and grew, and it helped increase our exposure and always got us more people interested, and it made each event stronger and stronger. We had the opportunity of staying in Vietnam for 7 full days, so I absolutely loved it. It was one of these countries. People always say, what's your favorite country? I couldn't really answer that honestly, but I will say I'd love to go back to Vietnam again. I will go back one day when the traveling is better. In Luxembourg, the world's wealthiest country, Luxembourg looks down on orphans so brutally that orphaned children must be put in rooms in buildings and not let anyone know that they're orphans as they get put back into society. If it is found out that they are orphaned kids, they are literally dog meat, dirt. They're looked down on so badly. The SOS Children's Village in Luxembourg had a farm, and the children had to raise the money for the farm, but the animals were their therapy. So this is the farm on the SOS Children's Village in Luxembourg. Incredible with all that money, that's the kind of attitude they have. And tragic. This is an example of Jakarta's, this is something that we're gonna see more and more of, and that is the peace sign. What is the one incredible sign that we have seen around the world? Is peace, right? The world is not an angry place. So many amazing people, and of course, funny enough, you know, considering what the media tries to have us believe sometimes, most of these people in the background are Muslim. I loved these colors here, so we got to see an example of the different colors that they wear in their burqas, etc. Right about this time, my daughter put up the sign, "Dear Toronto Blue Jays, my name is Capri, I'm 11 years old. I have sung 80 national anthems. Please let me finish off my journey by singing at a Blue Jays game." She even put the dates, August 23rd, 26th. We had no idea. We had no idea if the Blue Jays would say anything. And sure enough, they said yes. They canceled one group of people and put them on another game, and they let my daughter sing on August 25th in front of 53,000 people. She sang the Canadian American national anthems. The people who own the Blue Jays, I believe it's Rogers Entertainment, phenomenal, incredible group of people. They were so kind. And Toronto played our whole story on the Jumbotron before the game. I had about 150 friends come to that game from all over Ontario. It was wonderful. And this is, again, is an example of asking for help. This was shared on social media so much, the Blue Jays said, "I'll tell you what, we're gonna let you sing, but please go online and tell everybody we've accepted, because our phones are ringing off the hook. It's driving us crazy." So we had to go on, create the sign, go on and say the Blue Jays said yes. I had the opportunity quickly to take some amazing portraits while I was there. There was Vietnam, South Africa. I loved meeting these women. I loved the stories in their face. Jakarta, Kiev, India. This woman's eyes just glow to me. She was an incredible person. And in India, people would just come out. They see a Caucasian person, they would just come out and ask, come right out of their homes. "Who are you? Why are you here? What's going on?" We were in Chennai and Mumbai. And it was one of the things that I got to do on the side was take these photos of these portraits. They hang in my home. And I just absolutely love the opportunity of being able to do that and meet these people. And this is The Hague, where this woman was with pigeons. I also collected SOS Children's Village bracelets, so I started getting a whole pile of things on my hand. Hope I'm doing well for time. We saw some tragedies in Cambodia and Laos. This is the killing fields. 3 minutes? Okay, so this is the killing fields. These are bomblets. A lot of children lose their legs because of bombies in Laos and Vietnam. There are still 10 million bombs spread throughout the countryside, dropped by the United States over the 10 years of 1965 to 1975. All of these are legs in the Hope Clinic for children who stepped on a bomb or adults who stepped on a bomb. This was my prime thing. If it was too windy, I stood behind the sign. That was my main job. This was Germany. This was an example in South Africa. They didn't think at the SOS Children's Village that the media would be particularly interested in this story because different countries, different people. And we were like, "You've got to be kidding me." My wife got the phone. She said, "My daughter is singing in front of Nelson Mandela's statue." And the newspaper said, "Oh my gosh, we'll see you there in 15 minutes. And she was on the front page of the Pretoria Times in South Africa because they thought it was a great story. It was an example of the person doing public relations for SOS in South Africa should not have been doing that job. She just was not into her job. She didn't like it. And we were persistent. This is what persistence and killing people with kindness will get you. Again, peace. We had nowhere to sing in Kuala Lumpur. We approached this all-girls school. They were playing in the parking lot, in an awful parking lot. We approached them. We said, "Can we sing the Malaysian national anthem with you?" These girls said, "Absolutely." And we had the opportunity in Italy and India, Greece. While we were in Greece, in the subway system, we met some very scary bikers, and they were French. And when my daughter sang the French national anthem in the subway of Greece, they loved it. And of course, as you can see there, he is wearing a Canada pin that we gave him. And this gentleman recognized us from Israel. So this guy came up to us in Ireland because it was doing so well and said, hey, you're that Canadian family I saw you on the TV in Israel. This is the World Peace Forum in Luxembourg. We went back to Luxembourg for this. And this is when we had the films done. And this is Estonia. My daughter sang with one of the most famous singers in Estonia. And in Israel, we got to sit down for Passover. We're a Catholic family, but we got to experience Passover with this incredible family in the 4 days that we were with Israel. At one point, we had Muslim kids talking to Jewish kids, talking to Catholic kids. We need to move past this, because it was just an incredible experience. The religion was put by the wayside, and it was amazing. So here's an example, and even in China, especially at the SOS Children's Village, as you can see, everything is for the children. It was a main theme for us. This is what happens when you don't have screens. My daughter got some mosquito bites. We had to take her to the hospital. It wasn't always easy. And again, peace, 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 peace. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And I hope you all are healthy and wise and taking care of yourself during COVID.
I think we should be clapping for Tom.
Yeah. Can everybody unmute themselves and clap, please?
I hope that was good. It was interesting to go through that.
If anyone has any questions for Tom, just put them in the chat box and I shall moderate them. Thank you so much for that, Tom. I do have one question here from Ellie. What country was in the first slide? And that was the one that had garbage behind the school.
Oh, okay. So I'm fairly certain that was China. That was China, and then the next one was Cambodia. So we had the garbage, and then the Cambodian school was the one where it was a public school, and there were rats scurrying around, and that was where they ate lunch. That was their lunchroom. It was an outdoor lunchroom, and there were rats everywhere. And I was just stressing that the SOS Children's Village, their schooling was so fantastic compared to what the kids might be getting in a regular public school.
Great, thank you. Do we have another question for Tom?
Well, one thing I wanted to state also was my wife had an accident and she tore her MCL during the Around the World in 80 Anthems, and she had to be on crutches for 22 countries. So the last 2 months of this journey, my wife was hobbling around on crutches. It was unbelievable.
Hey, I have another question here, Tom. Did you eventually eat that frog?
I had to. I had to eat something of it, and believe it or not, there was actually tougher things. When we were in China, there were some things that we ate that were, but you know, the SOS Children's Village had a cook, and he was standing there proudly giving you the food, and so I have a very strong stomach, fortunately, so I could do it. But frog garlic breath, tough one. We ate some pretty crazy foods, but I would never want to offend people, so. Just quickly, the worst meal, to be honest with you, was a breakfast in Thailand. They made us this breakfast, and it was cold meatball porridge. And it was the saltiest cold meat. We couldn't eat it. And so we just kind of had to dump it out back. We felt really, really bad, but we just could not eat it. And of course, with people's cultures, you just want to be so very respectful.
Okay, I have another question here, Tom.
Please.
Alan is wondering if there's one place where you'd like to give this speech to, and where would that be? One country, I guess, or city?
United Nations somewhere. Because in Poland at the SOS Children's Village, we were having lunch, and one of the kids had been removed from a very difficult home, and the father committed suicide in the middle of our lunch. not with us, but he was at home. He killed himself, and we had to leave the lunch and go back to the SOS Children's Village while they dealt with the child because their father just killed himself. And it was an unbelievable experience. And look at what's going on in the world right now. I don't even know if we could do 80 anthems now. I don't even know. I don't think we could. I don't think it would be possible to get all the passports, to get everything together to be able to do it. And so I just want more people to understand. Not once in 80 countries did we feel unsafe. It was friendliest people coming up. Do you need help? They see us with a map. Can we help you? You know, we're not gullible. I'm a bigger guy. So we gave off an aura of kind of don't mess with us. But in 80 countries, not once did we feel unsafe. That says something about our world.
Yeah. How many Latin American countries were you able to visit?
That's a great question. Offhand, I couldn't answer that question. How many Latin American countries? That would be I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. What we did do when we were, again, so we had 10 months, 11 months to do the 80 countries. So Europe was a great one because you had 30 countries by rail. Caribbean, we did 4 countries in one day. In 24 hours, we did 4 countries. We would land on the tarmac. My daughter would leave, stand on the tarmac while the plane waited, sing the song, get back on the plane, and have somebody sign it. Because Guinness Book of World Records wanted us to upload every video of every time we did an anthem in order for them to track that we legitimately did it. I cannot tell you what a pain in the butt that was. And the Olympics were on. You can imagine how many people are going onto the World Records website. So it was just incredibly unbearable, but that's what they required for us to get the Guinness Book of World Records.
What's next to build on this amazing journey that you had?
This moment right here.
Okay.
This is it. Things like this. And my daughter now, last summer, my daughter got hired to sing in Liverpool, England at the World Netball Championships. So she sang all 22 national anthems of all 22 countries. Netball is it's like basketball in Europe. It's played by over 20 million girls. And the largest under 18 soccer tournament in the world is in Dallas, Texas. And my daughter sang 40 national anthems there. And she was invited back this year, but we all know what happened to that tournament this year. But she is getting so much, all these videos are growing, and it's just bringing more awareness to this particular SOS Children's Village. I don't mean to make it all about the SOS, but it is a great organization. But this kind of thing is just growing and growing and growing, and my daughter still knows all those anthems, and she proudly sings them.
How can we help spread your message?
Please get in contact with us if you would like. At the website. If you go to aroundtheworldin80anthems.com, it goes to my daughter's website, and just contact us there, because we would always love to have anybody's ideas, experiences. It is obviously our main charity, and this COVID has caused a lot of things to be canceled that we had. My daughter is going to be singing in September. I believe it's still on so far, but going to Texas for 2 weeks to sing in the high schools with about 3,000 people per event, and it's called High School Nation, and she always represents around the world with the 80 anthems, and so that's kind of how we're progressing. I'm just trying to do as many events as possible, and I really think if the world ever needed it, it's got to be now.
I have a question here from Darlene, and wanted to find out more about the film and what Capri is doing now.
Yeah, I can see Paula Abdul was going to be our original. Yeah, so that's Paula Abdul. She was going to be our narrator. She got sick, so Damon John from Shark Tank did it. These are the films, and you can find them on iTunes or Amazon. And one of them is a half hour. Anthems, A Journey Around the World. It won 9 awards. And Around the World in 80 Anthems, the movie, which is narrated by Damon John out of New York City. That movie is an hour and a half long, and that won, I think, 7 awards as well. So both those movies are around $5 or $10, something like that. And all proceeds go to the director of Anthems, 40%, and then the rest go to SOS Children's Villages.
Thank you, Tom. Shall turn it back to Janice and Yuria.
Thank you.
I posted links in the chat to SOS Children's Villages and to the IMDB entry for Tom's film and his daughter's website. If you wanted to grab those, I would like to thank everybody and for coming out. And